Hello, my name is Shelby Davis, and I am an English language and literature student with a minor in creative writing at Central Washington University. I am also an upper division honors student at Douglas Honors College, and today I will be presenting portions of my upcoming novel, Night of Awakening, by focusing on the strengths and forms of empowerment in the young adult fiction genre as a whole, and I'll be comparing this to other young adult fiction works that are New York Times bestsellers. In order to guide this discussion, I will first introduce you to young adult fantasy genre as a whole in terms of engagement, and then we will reflect on feminist influence in young adult fantasy as a whole, and then we'll determine how feminist influence is presented within my own novel, Night of Awakening, and then we will reach a conclusion as to how feminism influences young readers. Young adult fantasy influences young readers through numerous ways. However, for this discussion specifically, we will be talking about these 4 bullet point ways. Young adult fantasy provides a way for young adult readers to become interested in topics that they would not be able to get in more westernized stationed readings presented in the classroom. Also, young adult fantasy demonstrates social issues through the fantastical lands that can be represented in our reality. And it is within this perspective that readers can gain perspective on current political issues. And due to young adult fiction being more orientated toward young readers, the characters are of a younger age and therefore more relatable to the characters, which engages them in the discussion. And it is through this specific genre that readers are then able to express themselves further on the topic through platforms such as Wattpad or TikTok. 2 novels that I would like to focus on for feminist influence would include Marissa Meyer's Cinder and Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses. It is within these 2 novels that we get 2 distinct female lead characters that present feminist power. More specifically, it is within Cinder that we see an active challenge to the traditional beauty standard for women. Despite Cinder being part cyborg and therefore lacking the traditional standards of beauty, she is viewed by the prince as more beautiful than the queen, whose beauty is a facade, a glamour that holds only a cold, vicious heart, but also a physically unattractive face. Since this challenge is being presented to a younger audience, it is calling young readers to question what truly defines beauty. Meanwhile, A Court of Thorns and Roses is narrated by the main character, Feyre, who starts the novel as a human and then transforms into a powerful fae. So powerful that despite no female fae ever holding the title of High Lady, she breaks the standard by becoming the first. Also, she is viewed as a potential threat by her enemies, which promotes her power even more. It is through Feyre's progression that Sarah J. Maas is able to challenge her readers to pursue their own aspirations and challenge standards that oppress women. In order to express feminist influence in my novel Night of Awakening, I used the following passage. By the time he had finally slowed from my pained yelling, I collapsed to my side as it stabbed me with pain. Sweat was running down my temples, and I could feel it dripping along my spine. My breath came in raspy husks against my parched throat. I was in so much pain that I did not want to rise to my feet ever again, much less in any more of those horrendous runs. But as my heart slowed its tempo, I craved more. I wanted my heart to keep beating at that rate and never slow. The sweat on my back was starting to chill my skin, and I wanted to warm again. I wanted to feel the air run across my damp face. So as I smiled at Jaren with pleasure, he understood immediately and started at the same pace, me close on his heels. I continued running day after day, sometimes several times during a day. Jaron eventually became so busy with his training that I ran alone, and soon enough a solid run wasn't enough for my heart, so I tried some techniques. I saw Jaron practicing with his friends. At first it was only a stick that I found laying on a run. I cut the air with the unbalanced stick and practiced my kicks, aiming at invisible enemies. I found my crescent daggers only a month later, and had grown taut with muscle, no longer waiting for powers that would never come. My body was now prepared to fight for itself instead of relying on something that would never come. I was trailing through the market by myself after picking up a biscuit from Renee's shop. Jaron had told me to meet him at the market after his training, so I was wandering across the stands as I waited. That was the first time I saw them glint in the afternoon sun, catching the beauty of the natural world and making it its own. They were unlike any other blades on the merchant's display. My blades were hidden in the back of the booth, hanging from the back of the tent, unlike the straight blades that were displayed front and center. I walked up to the booth, unsure of my footing. I never was drawn to weapon booths before. I thought it was brutal. But with those curved blades, I saw the beauty in something deadly. My voice, to my surprise, was not shaky. "What about those ones?" My fingers pointed at the blades in the back, shaking. But the merchant didn't notice, as he already turned toward the back of the booth, his brows knitted in question. He turned back, and I noticed the nicks in his uneven beard where hair no longer grew. "That one is defective." Defective. That is the word I had been searching for. Not a single person uttered a word about what I am, so I had forgotten the word. I had laid up at night to remember what word was missing from my vocabulary to describe what I am. I tried to edge the blade, but it bent the entire thing. Wasn't able to fix it past that. The merchant raised his hand to wave off the notion. I looked back up at the blades. Standing closer, I could tell that the handle wrap was hastily applied. Only wrapped enough to protect the handler's skin against the sharp blade, but not wrapped in a delicate pattern as the daggers that stood in the front of the booth. The wrap also was a dulled black, obviously not used on any other knife on display. My reflection stood in the thick blade. My wavy hair danced past the end of the curve, extending to my waist at the time. My almond eyes were open in wonder. "I will take it." The words fell off my lips in a slight whisper. I looked back at the merchant, his thick, dark brown eyebrows dipping even deeper in question. So I tried again, my voice stronger, finally matching the newfound strength that was hidden beneath my loose clothes. "I will take that one." After reading this portion of my novel, it is obvious to see that Alina is coming into terms with her reality, and instead of choosing to be overcome with the situations, is taking more of a empowerment approach, which then in turn can empower young readers. With the select sentences I have highlighted on the screen, you can see the improvement that Alina is facing during these times and her motive in order to progress. And it is with this distinct progression that Alina can inspire her young readers to overcome their own situations and enact on them in their own sense. In the end, young adult fantasy is able to raise awareness of real dilemmas and issues by indirectly addressing them through their fantastical world. Also, the actions and morals of the main characters can influence perspectives of young readers by challenging standards within our society. And finally, these published forms of art can promote original content created by young readers on popular platforms such as TikTok and Wattpad. With all of this in mind, young adult fantasy can be readdressed as an essential form of writing due to its positive contributions in the world of literature.